short introduction to design thinking and to how we've been using design thinking and been doing some design thinking related products now for a few years. So I just stopped the AC for not having too much background noise. So if I begin sweating, it's perfectly normal. It's still very hot here. So let me start with design thinking. So what is design thinking in the first place? Oh, by the way, if I speak too much, too fast, whatever you don't understand, interrupt me at any time through chat or through vocal, no problem. So design thinking is, I'll be very vague for the moment, that's on purpose, a design methodology which is made to actually end up producing services, products, or processes. And the main point of it is that the final products are going to be much closer to the real need of the user. So that's how it's defined. But right now, I want to do a very mini version, condensed version of a workshop we usually do when we do introduce design thinking to teachers. So to do that, I'm just going to make you watch a video. So let me see here. So it's going to be condensed because normally it's a 3-minute video on a workshop, which is something like an hour. So I will accelerate it at time. But the point is, this video is just going to show you a teaching from a teacher. It's in Greece, but it doesn't really matter. What he says doesn't really matter either. I just want to you to see the video. That's it for let's say a minute or so of time, and then I will ask you some stuff. So let me start. So I don't know if you have the actual voice of the guy, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm just going to accelerate some parts of it. Okay, I'm going to stop it here. And basically, the idea is that after watching this video, so remember that is a video of a Greek teacher in a teaching, and normally I'm doing this workshop with also Greek teachers, but it can be teachers from anywhere, and you're all into education, so that also works with you. After watching the video, I'm asking them to analyze the video. So to analyze it, I'm asking them several things. First, a chronology of activities. So basically, they need to slice the videos into some chapters and say what's happening, also the emotion and feelings which are happening in the video in the different times, the places in the video, and the things that are happening in the video. So I'm doing that, and then what I'm asking them is, how can you improve the teaching of this teacher? Because you've all seen in this video, this video was of course selected because it has a lot of details that shows that it's something which far from ideal as teaching conditions, and that many things could be improved to actually make it a much better teaching for both the teacher and the students. So I'm trying to make them first analyze the video, and then I'm trying to make them think about what are the problems and how they can solve them. So basically the idea is that we need to define the problem to create a point of view. Here in the cartoon, you can see that things sometimes depend entirely on perspective. The guy in the boat thinks that, well, he's safe because there's a guy on the land, awesome. And the guy on the land thinks that he's going to be safe because there's someone on the boat approaching. So things are entirely a matter of perspective. And it's very important to define perspective when you have a problematic. So here what you need to do is you need to define which user needs to a way to solve a problem because there is a certain insight on that problem. So the very introduction to design thinking is that it's trying to create a point of view on the problem. And then after that, we are asking the teachers to actually prototype a solution to the problem they have found. What happens in those workshops is that very often they find that they focus on entirely different problems. For example, one of the problems in the video is that he was teaching math in a music class. It was obviously a music class because there was a piano and there was a special blackboard with lines for drawing and musical notes. Also, the fact that the room was had very bad actual audio. The fact that some students were sitting on lawn chairs and not on usual chairs. They were sitting on chairs and not being on tables, etc., etc., etc. He had also just one set of 3D little models for 3D geometry, whereas it would have been better if all the students would be able to actually access to this 3D geometry rather than take turns. There's many different problems which are actually encapsulated in this video. And the idea is to showcase the fact that the point of view of people will be vastly different when watching this video and trying to analyze what the problem is. So design thinking, what you will usually find when you're looking for design thinking, you will find this schema. And it says that design thinking is a process that takes 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So what it means is that the first step, empathize, is the important one, is the one I'm trying to share with them in the workshop. Well, empathize and define. Empathize means trying to understand what the problem is. If it's an actual real life problem that, I don't know, a company has, that would mean going to the company, trying to discuss with a different member of this company, trying to see live what the problem is, taking videos, having interviews, whatever that take. Empathize is trying to define to actually not define right now at this stage. In empathize, you're trying to gather as much information as possible on all the different surroundings, the framework of the problem. In the second step, define, you're trying to actually define what the problem is. So that's what we were doing before. And as I said, in design thinking, you might end up with the same basic situation, but different teams finding completely different types of problems. And that's perfectly okay. It's not a bad thing. It's perfectly okay. So in the define phase, you're trying to define what actually the problem is and what are the parameters of this problem. Then you have the ideate phase, in which you are just throwing ideas in order to try to solve the issue that you have defined in the define phase before. One thing I kind of forgot to mention, which is very important, is that design thinking is a group process. Well, you can do it alone, but ideally it's something where you want to have a group of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 people. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's a group process, especially because it helps you gather all those different points of view, and you're trying to get some informed ideas in the define and ideate phase. So you have empathize, where you're trying to gather all the parameters of the problem. Define, where you're trying to define exactly what the problem is, in your opinion, that would help the end user. Sometimes in real life too, you will find actual situation where you have a problem, but even the people which are experiencing the problem have troubles with actually articulating it properly and defining it properly. So the define phase is also for that. Then you have ideate, where you're trying to find ideas in order to solve this problem. Then prototype, where you do a prototype to solve the problem, a real life prototype, or more like an abstract prototype, doesn't really matter. And then the testing phase, where you're actually taking your prototype and testing it in conditions, or seeing how it would work with the actual end user, etc., etc. So that's the idea behind the design thinking process. So design thinking is not the same thing than PBL. It might look the same because we take a problem and we have students which are starting from this problem and going towards a solution. But it's not the same thing. There are key differences. So for starters, PBL usually explore something which is a subject which is relatively narrow, because basically you're going to use PBL in order to illustrate a certain point in your teaching or in the curricula, whatever. And you have in that regard, the PBL project will mean that it's going to be an application of this knowledge. So it's bound to be a relatively narrow subject area, whereas design thinking, as we saw before, is something that might end up being very open, because the type of problem might be very different according to the different teams which are working on the problem. Also, in design thinking, it's the student and not the teacher which comes up with the essential question. So basically, it's the student which comes up with the actual problem to solve. The basic situation is the same for everyone, but how you actually analyze the situation and how you see the situation, how you see what the problem is in this situation is very up to the students themselves and not the teacher. And of course, it means that the idea of what the students would produce in PBL are pretty much very calibrated from the get-go. I mean, all the different problems we have posted on the Alien platform, we pretty much know what the flow of the PBL process is going to be. We know where the students start from. It's a problem which is very clearly set, delimited, and we know where they're going to arrive, even though there is some leeway, but we pretty much know what vaguely the final solutions will be. Whereas in design thinking, this might vary widely according to whatever the students have produced in the first phases. So in design thinking, basically, as I was saying, you don't have a very specific end in mind. You have a beginning that is shared by everyone, and then how it unfolds depends greatly on who is involved and how they are actually analyzing the situation. So to integrate design thinking into PBL, you can actually do it in a, well, easy. It's very doable, basically. The idea is that you take the phases of design thinking And you're in the empathize phase, the first one, you're trying to understand some basic question. Who does it concern, these problems that we see in this PBL activity? Why does it concern them? What already exists as solution for these people? And how can we do it? How can we actually solve this problem? Then in the define phase, you're trying to rethink the problem which has been given to you based on what you found up in the empathize state, and state a list of specification for your problem. Then, of course, in ideate, now that you have the specification, you generate some alternative and more innovative, ideally, solutions. Then you can prototype it as usual with either physical or theoretical. It's very often that in design thinking you can have a model in prototype that is just theoretical, so basically just a board with post-its. And then you can test it with peer review or peer feedback, teacher feedback, and trying to improve the whole process. So what does design thinking look like? Well, as you can see, it looks like a very workshopy activity. You have groups of people which are working on something, some definition of problems or some ideas to solve the problem. So, by the way, on the left, right-hand side, sorry, bottom right, this photo was taken by myself in one of the workshops I attended, a design thinking workshop I attended. So what we were doing is use those huge whiteboard, and we were putting lots of paper stickers. Well, I will call them post-it from now on. I know it's a brand, but whatever. So we're using lots of post-its because post-its are awesome. Everybody can write them, and you can just reorganize them as you want. And if you don't want them anymore, you can just throw them away. So they are very, very useful in the design thinking process. Post-its, and you will find them everywhere. So it looks like a very dynamic and fluid process, design thinking, where you have people which are working collaboratively. Here, each table is basically a group. They are working collaboratively inside the group, and sometimes even between groups. That depends. And in this process, they're going to try to first define what the problem is. First getting an analysis of situation, define what the problem is, create an idea, and then etc. Test prototype. All that is done in this workshopy style with post-its and people interacting and moving things about. So there are some issues, those practically speaking, with design thinking, and that's why we came up with some computer-based solutions. So as you can see, one of the issues with design thinking is that there's so much post-its, and post-its are awesome because they are flexible, etc. But also they are very fragile, and it's difficult to keep a track. So how did we keep track in those workshops? Well, we did exactly what I did here, which was taking a photo of the actual post-its. But as you can see, sometimes they are barely readable. Sometimes one post-it on top of another. It makes very little sense sometimes to understand the global way they are shaped, because they have lost their shape in the meanwhile. So there is some issues with this documenting of the process. Also, there is the fact that you need to be everyone grouped together working at the same time. So there are some issues with, not issues, but some limitation, let's say, to the design thinking process. So we try to come up with some improvement by creating an electronic platform to help us in design thinking. So we try to begin by having an electronic platform to bypass the necessity to be all present at the same time. So with our platform, you can do design thinking while being at the opposite end of the world, and you can do it, one of them at the beginning of the day, the other one at the end of the day. That's not a problem. Also, yeah, they need to be at the same place when you're doing this design thinking and at the same time. So we are lifting all that. We're lifting all the material constraint, because basically now the only thing you need is internet access and a computer or a cell phone, because our solution also works on cell phones. And also, very importantly, it's very easy to document the results because they are basically digital. Everything is there. So there is always a trace of what was done. We also integrate other media. As you could see before, all those post-its are just text. So if you want to, it's very often that when you're actually trying to do the first phase, empathize, you will end up with videos or audio or something else as multimedia material. So our platform allows for integration of audio, video, and photos. So that's also an easy way to have all those media inside the design thinking process. And we have some gamification, which is built inside the platform. So, whoops, wait. Now, what I want to do is show you just a sec, design it. Here it is. So I'm going to show you design it, which is the first iteration of our platform. Then we have DT4S, which is a second iteration, but we have many iterations of the platform. But let me just show you how broadly it works. So I'm going to log in, and we have defined what we call lobbies. It's basically classroom. It doesn't really matter what it is. So if I go in a classroom like that, I see a certain amount of what we call challenges, but it's basically the teams. So before you had people around the table, here you have people which are registered in a team. Here you can see there's 8 people in this team, 5 in this one, 7 in this one, etc., etc. And in the framework of this course, they all have actually the same challenge to work with, so the same initial problem to work with. So how it happens is that what we have here is a post-it board. So the teacher is basically giving the assignment, or it can document the assignment with post-its that they can put on a post-it board, and those post-its can contain photo, video, or anything they want. And here, as you can see on top, we have different steps. Usually those steps can correspond to the design thinking process. So you will have 1 as empathize, 2 as idea, etc., etc. But that is completely dependent on the teacher. You can have as many steps as you want, basically. And what happens is that the teacher is prepping up the actual work here, and the students are filling up this wall with what they found and their own discoveries. To have some interaction between the student and the teachers, what we've been doing is that as a student, you can have special actions. So you can ask for help to the teacher. So that means that you're going to send a message to the teacher, hey, please check this board because I need help in that and that. So that is a direct communication link with the teacher. Or you can ask the teacher when you're satisfied with one of the steps of the design thinking process, or one of the steps of the actual problem here, you ask them for a review. And the teacher can give you a pass or a fail, and you can talk about it online. Or you can ask actually for a brainstorm. So a brainstorm is asking for all the other members of the other teams to help you about something. That's here the phase step 0. And basically, this allows to have a canvas like that, an empty one, on which anyone which is a member of this class can actually contribute to whatever the issue that those students are having. So you have this as a student. You basically see those the post-its, and you collaborate by putting post-its on the different on the different walls. You have instructions that you can see, different levels with different instructions that you need to follow, etc., etc. So that's how the process is working on this platform. And as a teacher, you also have a little bit of analytics by having, wait, I just saw a message. Martin, did you say something? Because, yeah, the chat. How DT is different from DBR, research by design, DSR. Okay, so yeah, research by design. I think that the difference between DT and RBD, because I know research by design, but I'm not sure I know DSR and DBR that well. The big difference is the emphasis put on the fact that it's actually, in the end, the student which is going to define exactly what the problem is going to be and how they're going to solve it. Even in something like the RBD, you still have the illusion of freedom for the students, but the design thinking process is much more free than the RBD type of process. So I would argue that the difference here is much more with how much actual freedom the students have in this process. Really, once you have given the actual initial situation, because it's not even a problem, you didn't define the problematic, you just define an initial situation. So based on these situations, they now need to analyze it and to try to find the problem, etc., etc. Of course, if there is an actual real-life situation, they will need to have several loops of analyzing and defining, which works with the end user also being in the loop. Because you might have students which go on completely crazy things. You need to be able to try to have something which is relevant. The final product needs to be relevant for the end user. That's actually the main thing for design thinking. It needs, it is stemming from the need that the solution needs to be not only well engineered, it needs to be really adapted to the end user, and the end user needs to be in the loop of the design thinking process. So yes, so that I would argue would be the difference between design thinking and those other methodology. Although those other methodologies are very close to design thinking, that is indeed very true. Okay, so sorry. So here I wanted also to show you that, yeah, if I remember correctly, if I go there, yeah, I can see actually as a teacher here, I can see who were the students which were inside the different groups. And if I click on the download thing here, I can actually download some very simple analytics in the form of just an Excel file where I can see lots of data. So I can do it by student, by group, or for the entire lobby. So I can have the data for about things like how many times have they connected, how many post-its have they created, how many times they've asked for help, etc., etc., how many times did they comment on other people post-its, etc., etc. So there is a lot of analytics that can happen behind, but because that was a very first project, here they are still in a very nascent phase. So I'm just going to go quickly because I see that our time is running short. I'm going to go quickly to the latest iterations that we have right now, which is DT4S. DT4S also is implementing our design thinking platform, but targeted more towards high school students. And this time we have defined what we call activities. So activities are what you just saw before with the post-it board and videos and photos, etc., and as many levels that you actually need. But the novelty here is that those activities can be also public, so you can share them with other teachers. So there is a whole repository. Right now it's just gibberish because we are still in the early testing phase. So we're just testing the platform more than we are testing by introducing real activities. So apologies for that. It's just all gibberish. It's just testing of the actual platform. So right now what happens is that you can create your own activity. So you give it a name. You can give it a description, then you can add tags about tags being whatever your activity is about. And after adding tags, you define how many levels your activity will have, in what language it will be, if it's going to be a public or a private one, etc., etc. So you save it, and here it is. No, wait. Where did I put that? Here it is. Now I'm editing it. As you can see, there's 5 levels. And then those 5 levels, now for each of the level, I can, as a teacher, begin to create some text here for my student, begin to pick up a color for a post-it, can put some videos here, or can put some photos, or etc., etc. I can do whatever I want. I can resize it, etc. All the post-its are locked by default, so that means that basically the students won't be able to change them. So I do that for my different activity levels. And then once I have my activity, what I can do is create, okay, right now it's called a problem, it's will be called a classroom soon. So we create a classroom in which we are putting groups of people, and we are slotting in the activities that already exist. So basically, all the activities which have been defined here, we can slot them in our courses, and we define for each of them a start date and an end date, so we know when the students need to start it, when it will be available for the students. We can decide to have them all available from the beginning, and also when they will end. We save that, and then we have our here activity. It's actually this one, and we can see the members as before. As you can see, it's the same kind of interface that we evolved. You can also change the dates, and if you do some modification in the activity here, you can actually refresh the activities which are based on them to see the changes. And we're going to have soon, we're going to add analytics in terms of graphs and other things. Right now, those are just placeholder analytics, but we're going to add some analytics in terms of which are going to use the same data points as before, which are going to be student activity, etc., etc., in terms of graph. So, and of course, as a teacher, I'm informed on what is happening. Like, for example, here I see that this team asked for brainstorming. In the other platform, maybe you see it better because it's finished here. You see that in this activity, I need to do some verification. I need to also provide some help. Here, I need to provide a review. And I see that when there is a brainstorming happening. So yeah, so that's pretty much it because we're running late. So this is those are our platform. And whoops. If you want any information about them,
the meeting will close in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So if you want to have any information about them, write to me. And then I will give you teacher access. I can give you access to them. Right now they are freely available, of course. So I can give you access to them. Well, you can have access already by just going there. Those two URLs. And I can give you teacher access. When you register, you can be a teacher or student. Oh, by the way, also something very important that we did was that each of the course actually goes with a code, and it's a code that you give to your students. So this way, you don't need to enroll your students. The students enroll themselves, and then you can have some checking afterwards of who is enrolled in your course. But the idea is that you don't need to do a lot of student management normally. Okay, that is pretty much it. So if there is any question or anything, I'd be happy to answer to them. Otherwise, I think I'm done with my presentation for today.
There are some questions in the chat.
In the yeah, okay. Sorry for that. Chat. Yep. Give link. You know what? I'm going to just simply copy paste them in the chat. Let me just copy paste. I'm into. Okay, my bad. Let me just copy paste the two URLs in the chat, and then I will answer the other questions. So I wouldn't recommend to deliver a course using a design thinking approach. I would recommend to use design thinking as an excellent tool to have an application of what you just taught. So it's the same way that you would be using PBL to highlight a concept that you have actually taught before, you would be using design thinking in order to try to have your students do things by themselves. And I would say that design thinking applies especially well if you manage to have a situation where, which would be a real life situation, where your student could do some real life exploring and discovering of what the actual problem is. So if you find someone, a company, or not even a company, or something which is a very real life kind of situation, then you could have your students go and do some exploration about it. I know that in the Design It's project, our